Hey, it's George, and welcome to the Call to Adventure podcast. We're on a mission to help create happier people and a healthier planet. So let's get after it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Call to Adventure. We've actually just added a few more lockdown-beating adventures over at calltoadventure.uk. One being bike glamping up in the Peak District, which is 2 days bike packing, staying in a luxury bell tent overnight as opposed to roughing it in your bivvy bag, so the best of both worlds. There's a fire pit, a wood-burning stove, and even a loo with a view. So you're still wild camping in the woods, but with a super comfy camp. The guides are there to get you set up, make sure you're happy, but then it's self-guided, which makes it feel more of an adventure and obviously means that you can socially distance without any problems at all. So head over to calltoadventure.uk for more on that, other adventures and loads of free content. But now on to today's guest. Sophie is an adventure athlete, a blogger, a writer, and a motivational speaker. She completed a world-first Alpine coast-to-coast challenge, climbing the highest mountains in the 8 Alpine countries and biking between them over 32 days. She cycled London to Paris in 24 hours 9 times, done multi-sport races around the world, bike raced across the UK, spoke at TEDx, completed 100-kilometre ultramarathons, and is a 2-time Ironman finisher. We cover a lot in this episode, from the beauty of adventuring right on your doorstep, Sophie's journey quitting her unfulfilling job in sales in London in search for a life of adventure, her first adventure race out in Borneo, the benefits of adventure in dealing with everyday life, body confidence and the importance of functionality over aesthetics, the power of social media as a force for good, and her epic van conversion. So enjoy today's episode of Call to Adventure with Sophie Radcliffe. Sophie, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, George. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before about how this has been a long time coming. In the years now, I think you may be the longest guest on the guest list sheet before they have actually managed to come on. So you're like the most in-demand guest for this many years, I think. So congrats.
Oh, well, thanks so much for persevering. And I'm so glad that the world has opened up for us to have this time to have this wonderful conversation.
That's one thing that lockdown has been great for, I must say, finally getting hold of adventurers who are normally out and about, always really tricky to nail down, whereas people are actually around now, which has been really, really good. How's lockdown been for you?
You know, it's exactly as you just said, normally being so out and about, and I've absolutely loved the calm and the peace from it. Obviously, it's challenging as it is for everybody, not knowing what's coming next, loss of work, just life just changing in a heartbeat. But I've kind of adapted really quickly and just found other ways to get the energy that I normally get from going out adventuring and doing my work. And, you know, I'm really loving the slower pace of life, and this weather's been amazing. So I've been out on my bike a lot and finding little rivers to go swim in and just focusing on different areas of my work that I don't normally have time to do.
Yeah, I saw a couple of days ago, I think it was on your Instagram, that you'd also been out for a bike ride and a wild swim. And I went out with a friend yesterday doing that. And like you say, the weather was really good. And it was one of those moments where you couldn't really be happier in life, even though it's in my hometown, in my home county. And we just went for, a little half an hour or so bike ride to the river, and then just got in. It was that perfect temperature where it was refreshing but not freezing cold. The sun was out, and it really makes you appreciate those little things, right? When we are maybe normally used to doing bigger adventures a bit further afield, but that was probably where I wanted to be more than anywhere else in the world right then. It was great.
I couldn't agree more. It's so wonderful, and just to actually really appreciate what we have on our home turf. Scotland has for many, many years been my favourite place on the planet, and I'm dying to get up there. In a way, I feel like I'm indulging in my inner child as well, because I go out for little walks and pick flowers and press flowers, and I'm making gifts from them. And, you know, that's a far cry from, you know, climbing mountains and cycling cross countries, but it brings me so much joy just to be out in nature and reconnect and just have the time to focus on things that are more creative or more playful or more exploratory. And just, it's amazing what we have here. And I think that hopefully it's given us all an opportunity, and it will do in the coming months as we, it's going to be much more difficult to travel, to just go out and explore the beautiful UK.
I've really been focusing on that now for the trips that we're running for Call to Adventure. I mean, we don't really have a choice because you're pretty much confined to the UK, but it's really made me focus, look back here and turn the lens back to home. And there's just so many amazing things to do. We went up to Scotland, and I really don't know Scotland very well because, yeah, I guess like a lot of people, you dream of the really exciting, exotic places far away, and you think that you'll save the doorstep for later in life. But we had an amazing time. We went up on a winter ascent of Ben Nevis and learning winter mountain skills. And it was great. It was really, really snowy. We had everything that you should have in Scotland in like 4 seasons of weather in a day, beautiful sunshine and then hailstorm and then proper snow, and had the crampons on and doing lots of ice axes and self-arrests. And it was such a good weekend. It was as good a fun or as good an adventure as I've had anywhere. So yeah, Scotland is somewhere that I don't know as well as I would like to, but I'm really keen to get up there and explore a bit more. Have you got any top tips or good places for me to check out?
Oh, so many. Okay, so Glencoe is my favourite place on the entire planet. There is something about it that is just completely magical. It's really not far from Ben Nevis. The Cairngorms are amazing. You can do all kinds of amazing adventure sports there, or just go walking and in the whole of Scotland. I personally, one of my favourite things to do in the whole of my life is taking the sleeper train from London to Scotland. It's like, for me, it's so much of adventure in itself is actually kind of reigniting the way that I used to feel about like freedom and exploring when I was a child. And I never really, this is going a bit off track, but it just kind of popped into my mind and I thought it was quite relevant. I wasn't born into an adventurous family at all, but I used to just like get my bike and take myself off on a little, probably what was like a mile or 2 mile bike ride, pack a little picnic and go and sit with the horses in the field, or go and like explore the woods with my dog and make dens and stuff like that. And that to me was adventure and it was freedom. And so often I get that feeling when I'm out on adventures now. Like if I go up to the Cairngorms and I go and climb a mountain, obviously it's on a much bigger scale and it might be snowy, but I've still got my little packed lunch with me and I still go and sit by a tree and have it. And I just feel that same sense of freedom and wonder and curiosity, which draws me to adventure. And I really love it in Scotland because there's, it's real wilderness up there. And like you said, you don't need to go to Alaska or the North Pole or any of these far-flung places. It's, the Scottish weather is not reliable, but when you get it, it's just so incredible. And last year I cycled the North Coast 500, which is it's quite iconic 500-mile cycle ride around Scotland. Starts it in Inverness Castle and ends in Inverness Castle. It's obviously 500 miles of cycling. And a lot of people do it as a road trips. There's a lot of, motorcyclists and cars and camper vans out there as well, and lots of cyclists. And honestly, I mean, the last 10 years of my life, I've cycled in so many beautiful locations all over the world. But this just absolutely blew me away. Like, it was so beautiful and so, it wasn't just like, it's beautiful. It's just the diversity of the beauty. It changed so often, from these lochs to these towering mountains to gold sandy beaches with crystal clear blue water that look like they could be in the Mediterranean. It's all there, and I think it's just such a wonderful place to explore. Anyway, you got me on a bit of a roll because I miss Scotland a lot, and you've just given me an open book to talk about it. So
No, I think that's great. I've got the North Coast 500 trail as one of my things to do on my bucket list on my wall. So it looks like one of the really big adventures that you can do here on a bike that's almost like a kind of long distance bike tour, like 500 miles, take a few days off and really get out into the wilderness. So that's going to be on my list this year for sure.
It's one of those things that you can really take as I mean, okay, so let's just be honest about this. Some people do it in like 3 days. I did it in 6 days, and that I met some people on it who did it in 5, and I won't repeat what they said, but they were just like, you don't have time to go to the toilet, basically. It seemed really, really hardcore and really rushed. 6 days for me was perfect, and it was the amount of time that I had to do it in. But you could go for like a month and just still not see everything and do everything, because there's just so many gorgeous coves and beaches, and that's the thing. You can wild camp there. There's all these amazing campsites that you can stay in. You don't have to book. You can just take it as you go. And that for me is like a huge part of an adventure. I remember, I think an adventure is when you've got a plan to go from A to B, but what happens in between is always, changing and up for grabs. And I love that. I love, like, even just being on the North Coast 500, I genuinely, like, I started from Inverness Castle and I was like, okay, cool. So where should I ride to on my first day? And I just thought, well, this place looks good. And it was before the big hill and the whole climb. And I really love that. Like, some people love to have everything planned, and I totally get that. And for me, it just works really well just to not really have a massive plan and just go for it. And then just every day decide, yeah, this looks like a cool place to stay, or let's stop here for lunch. And, but if you had more time, you could go climb this mountain and go climb this hill and, go to the distilleries and drink some whiskey. And, just so much great stuff to do up there.
Yeah, I think it's really good for you to experience a trip without loads of planning and to make it a proper adventure. I think there's something more that you get from it if you do it like that. Sometimes there needs to be planning, and especially if you're doing a race or something, but a lot of the reward that I certainly found when we've been biking around places is when you just let things kind of go with the flow and, like you say, have an A and a B. That's when the magic happens and you end up meeting weird and wonderful people and stumbling upon amazing places. And I think most of the best stories have come from when we've taken a real big detour and then things have nearly gone wrong and then it's all worked out.
And that's what makes an adventure. Otherwise, it could just be more of a holiday or a trip.
Yeah. So you said that you didn't really grow up in a kind of adventurous way. So what was the tipping point and what was your journey into adventure?
I did grow up in the countryside and I loved that. And I moved to London when I was 11 years old. And then my life became quite sort of London based. I went to school in central London. We did do sport, but we were horrendous at it. So, I don't come from a sporty kind of background. I was pretty unfit and never really done much camping or hiking when I got into it. But what got me into it was a ambition to explore. And not just the world, but to explore myself and see what I was capable of achieving. And I'd always had this drive and desire inside me to do something, of impact with my life, to help others, to find out what I could achieve, and to really just figure out how to be the best version of myself. And what I found was that my job that I ended up getting when I graduated from university was a sales job, 9 to 5 in a London tech startup. That wasn't the place I was going to find out the answers to any of these questions. And I also, had this really burning desire to really, like, I felt like the tools that you need for life to be emotionally and mentally strong, to be able to survive the storms. And I consider, this coronavirus is a storm that we're all having to figure out how to survive. What do we need for this? We need courage, we need confidence, we need resilience, we need, able to deal with uncertainty. We need commitment to continue when things are really, really hard. And all of those things, I found the way to harness and develop and sharpen those tools through adventure. So that's really what got me hooked. So imagine I'm 22 years old, sitting in my 9 to 5 sales job in London, making cold calls and sending emails, going to a couple of meetings and just thinking, is this really it? Is this really my life? And the answer was no, it's not. And I wanted to go and do something about it. And so I decided I needed a challenge. And my first challenge, I like to throw myself in at the deep end. And it was an adventure race in the jungle of Borneo in 2008. I bought a bike. I started cycling across London to get fit. I joined boot camp in London and went to parks before and after work and would do like boot camp sessions. And that really kind of ignited a passion for actually exercising outdoors. And it was like, no matter if it's raining or snowing or whatever it is, you're out there and you're doing those burpees and those press ups and those sprints and you're going to get fit. And then I went off to Borneo and did this incredible adventure race. And there were 40 of us out there. We didn't know each other. We all just got plonked into the jungle together and spent the next 7 days in teams of 4 doing all kinds of amazing adventures, from cycling, mountain biking through the jungle, whitewater rafting, climbing Mount Kinabalu, which is a 4,000 meter mountain out there. And just doing at one point we actually got helicoptered into the jungle and armed with a machete. And they said, okay, you got to go and make a jungle camp for the night and we're going to come round. And that was all part of the points for the adventure, was sort of, they would also judge us on our jungle camp or our cooking jungle craft cooking skills and, things like that, just to diversify it. And we just had this incredible adventure out there, and it, honestly, it completely and utterly changed my life, because I woke up the next day, and after completing this adventure race, and our team had come second, and the whole I looked back at this whole journey from sitting in my office, commuting to work on the tube, and thinking, this isn't my life and I want to do something different, to actually standing on top of this mountain, having achieved way more than I ever thought that I possibly could. Gone to somewhere exotic, Borneo, the jungle, bunch of new friends, just experiencing so many highs and lows and incredible feelings, and thinking, this is it. This is what I want my life to be about. And not necessarily that I want to go on adventures all the time, but it was the way that I felt. It was that feeling of feeling so alive and so empowered and so excited about my future, of like, wow, I thought that I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff, but I did. And if I can do this, then what else can I do? And that basically started this whole journey of Challenge Sophie, and just kind of went back to London, went back into my office job, and I started looking for the next adventure and thinking, what else can I do? And so I decided I wanted to do a triathlon. And I fell in love with cycling, and I wanted to cycle London to Paris in 24 hours. Then I saw, I'd always wanted to climb mountains. I'd always had that, ambition and drive to do that. And I thought, I'd love to, learn how to become an Alpine mountaineer and climb Mont Blanc. And so I signed up for a course and started going to the Alps and the Scottish Highlands, like you did, to do winter skills and learning crevasse rescue and ice climbing, and then went off and climbed Mont Blanc and got really into mountaineering for quite a few years. And it was just this incredible, like life that I was living for those years, where I'd go off and do these adventures and challenges on my weekends. And every time I would dare myself to push it further and to dream bigger. And every time it would build my confidence a little bit more. And then I'd come back into work and I'd be like more empowered and ask for more, and be knocking on my boss's door and saying, can I have another opportunity, please? Because I'm ready. I want to take my life further. It was just an amazing journey of adventure and growth and fun and exploration.
Yeah, it's almost like when you do that first big adventure and you peel back the curtain and you see what's on the other side, that kind of exciting life that I think we kind of can forget exists. But then you peel back the curtain, you do something, and then you're just like, oh, wow, life could be like that. And then it's really hard to go back afterwards. But it fills you with this kind of fire inside, where all of a sudden you're very excited about things again, and you're dreaming about the next adventure, and you build that confidence, like you say. It's quite funny. The first mountain that I ever climbed was Mount Kinabalu too, and that set me off on. Yeah. I think that set me off on a different course through life, because I hadn't done particularly adventurous stuff before. I was more into like traditional sports and played rugby, and not really travelled anywhere outside of Europe. And then I did that, and I think that was the case. Like you say, you're in the jungle, and it's such a different environment, and you're living with tribe or staying with tribes people, and have a giant machete, and you're making cups and spoons out of bamboo, right? And it's just it's amazing. It's such an incredible experience. But I remember seeing that adventure race when we were there, thinking, wow, that looks hardcore, that looks amazing. So that was, like you say, certainly jumping in the deep end. What do you think gave you the courage or the confidence to do that? Or what would you say to people who are thinking, it sounds cool, but I'm just not sure that's really me?
I think that we should never follow in other people's footsteps, but maybe you are also thinking that you can achieve more, that you want more from your life, or that you believe that you're capable of more. What I would say is just go and find out, because you're not going to find that out necessarily just by doing the same things and living the same life that you're living. And that's it, and I am very aware that, I do like to push myself. And for me, that's part of the magic. But everybody has to create their own adventure and their own challenge in their own way. And it could be, going camping for the first time. It could be signing up for a sponsored walk. It could be, take it like right now, we all live with trails somewhere near our houses. Even in London, there's a trail from London to Brighton. There's beautiful trails everywhere, even if you're in cities. So find a trail, pack a backpack full of food and water and jelly babies, and go off and walk a bit of that trail for a day. Just go and have a little adventure on your own that makes you feel like you've come up with an idea that inspires you, you've planned it, you've executed it, and then you're just out there, you're doing it. And you don't have to do it on your own. Find a friend who wants to do it with you. Use groups. There's tons of groups on social media where you can meet like-minded people. But it's just about putting yourself out there and creating an experience for yourself that gives you an opportunity to do something different, get outside your comfort zone, experience different things. But most importantly, it shows you who you are, because I think that's really the hardest thing about life, is that we all feel so much pressure to fit in and to be accepted and to, look a certain way or whatever it is. And especially with social media, I do a lot of work with teenage girls, and the pressures that they're under to just constantly look, act, talk in a certain way is very restrictive for them. And so going out on an adventure, you forget about all of that. When you're climbing a mountain or you're out on a walk and the wind's howling around you, you don't care about any of that. You're just being yourself. And I think the more that we can be ourselves, especially in an opportunity that can be challenging, then you get to see who you are, because you have to step up. Like, it's hard, it's raining, something's gone wrong, I'm tired, I'm running out of food, my feet hurt, whatever it is. In all of those situations, you have a choice. Am I going to give up, or am I going to continue? And I always want to be the person that continues. And I always want to for me, the most important thing in my life is having that internal strength to carry on going, in life in general. So that's what draws me often to adventures, is because I get to practice that. I get to practice being that person. And then, also in just such an amazing way, you just get to have fun and you get fit and you see the world and you meet new people. And it's just like an incredible journey. So I would just say to anybody, I hope that some part of what I'm saying, you can relate to it. And if you do, then go and find your own way to create these kind of experiences that I'm talking about.
Absolutely. It's a really good training ground for life, doing things on adventures when the pressure's kind of dialed up and you get more comfortable with operating in that area. It turns down the volume on the rest of life. You're more able to deal with things, a bit like you said before with Corona, when you kind of built a little bit more mental fortitude. And it doesn't have to be doing super hardcore stuff, but I really liked what you said about the self-confidence part as well. Like, you start to do things, you set yourself a slightly higher bar, and then you actually achieve it. And then you change this idea of who you are and what you're capable of. And each time you move the bar a little bit higher and you grow into maybe a new person, or just explore new parts of you that you didn't really know were there. And that personal growth side is really important.
Yeah, you always realize it's not happening, It's like the best school you could ever go to, except you're not sitting down in the classroom thinking, oh, when's break time? You're having so much fun.
It's like the school of life, all the stuff that they don't teach you sat at a desk, but that you need, like your ability to deal with conflict, work with other people, work in a team, resilience, all those things that you said. So you've done lots of great adventures. I think the one that catches a lot of people's eye is the Alpine Coast to Coast Challenge. So can you talk a little bit about that, the genesis of it, and what the actual experience was like?
I guess the whole, like we're talking about, is where people start and where I started on my journey. And then, it is a journey, and you do it does open up each time. And that's what happened to me. And for all those kind of adventures and challenges that I was doing, I was building the confidence and the courage to one day actually go and do something really big, because I believed that I had that in me. But it's a process. You have to go through it, This is 2013. I actually quit my job in London, with the quote that I love that inspired me to do it: a ship in a harbour is safe, but that's not what a ship was built for. Go sailing. Which really inspired me to just take my ship out of the safe harbour and go for it. And I moved to Chamonix in the French Alps, which was my dream place. So I was like, right, tearing up the rule book of life, leaving London, go to Chamonix. And I'd had this adventure in mind for the last sort of 18 months. And it just sat as a document in my Google Docs in a spreadsheet. And it was called the Alpine Coast to Coast. And basically it was something I dreamed up to climb the highest mountains in the 8 Alpine countries and cycle between them. And it was really combining my 2 biggest passions, which are being in the mountains and climbing mountains and cycling. And I just decided to do it, just go for it. And I was like, now's the time. I was sort of 28 years old, I think. And I had my bike. I had sort of quite a bit of experience mountaineering at this point. At the highest mountain in the countries that I cycled and climbed in was Mont Blanc, but there were about 4,000 meter peaks. So it was some fairly serious mountaineering in some of those. And we just happened to pick this August, which is the month I did it in, that was really bad weather. So much rain. So it was like -15 on the summit of Mont Blanc, snowstorms, it got pretty gnarly at points, but it really, really was the most incredible experience of my life. It was the most challenging and the most rewarding, the most eye-opening. And, going back to this idea that I spoke about earlier about feeling alive, that is so important to me, because I'd love everyone listening to this to just take a moment and think about that. When do you feel alive, and how does that feel to you? Because we live every day, but how much of every day do we actually feel alive? And we just often, sort of going from one place to the next, and often sort of sitting down and just, going through the motions of our life, but to actually be out there in the elements, pursuing something that you're passionate about. And for me, I wanted to prove to myself what I could do if my mind was, engaged, and if I really, really, really wanted to do it. For me, it was about the testament of the human will and the mindset, because I think the power of the mind is absolutely phenomenal. I'd had built up a fairly good amount of endurance, but I'd never cycled anything like this. I'd never done anything like this. This was 32 days. I think I had a couple of rest days in between, but it was 32 days of nonstop cycling 150 kilometers a day with tons of ascent, because you're literally cycling through the Alps. And then I'd do 2 or 3 days on my bike. I'd get off, I'd climb a mountain for 2 or 3 days, come back down, camp, get back on my bike and cycle to the next country, climb the next mountain, come down, cycle to the next country, repeat 8 times through Slovenia, Austria, Germany, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Italy, France, and Monaco. And yeah, I just loved it. And it was, I was very new to the scene of social media and blogging. I loved it. I blogged a little bit on the way, obviously not that much, because I didn't really have that much spare energy. I was putting up posts and just, it was just me out there living my life, living my biggest dream, facing my biggest fears, and proving to myself what I could do and who I could become if I really, really wanted to do something. And it turns out that you can achieve quite a lot if you've got that mindset in place. And one of the quotes that really, my mum gave me this bracelet before I went, and on it it said, "She believed she could, and so she did." And it sounds so simple, and it's not simple to put that into practice. But honestly, it can be simple if you've got that belief. And when you're doing something like that, and you're constantly pushing and just on this pursuit of this journey, there's not a lot of room for the negative thoughts that are or there's no purpose in them of actually, I can't do this. So it was amazing. And I did fun things, when I was cycling through Italy, then I would have an ice cream every day, and eating pizza and eating delicious chocolate when I was going through Switzerland, and swimming in rivers to cool my legs down at the end of the day, and camping and meeting people, and just great stuff like that. We met a lot of people along the way who would sort of ask me what I was doing, and at this one point I remember coming through this beautiful Alpine descent, and I met these guys, and they were British guys, and they were on a cycling holiday. And they were like, "Hey, what are you doing? And I sort of told them, and they were like, "Okay, cool." And then the next morning, we both happened to be leaving where we were staying at the same, we were staying in different places. We both had to be leaving the town at the same time. And they came up to me and they were like, they were like, "What? We actually Googled you last night. We didn't really take you seriously when you were telling us what you were doing." But I was like, "Yeah, a couple more countries to go, just keep cracking on." And, just like a few years before then, I didn't own a bike. I'd never climbed a mountain before. And I was a 20-year-old living in London, working an office job. So what you can achieve, I think, and I hope that is something that your listeners can take from this, is that, just go out there and give it your best shot and do something that makes you feel alive.
Did it feel different doing a world first? Did you feel any pressure that you had to do it, or were you more motivated to achieve the end goal for the kind of, I guess glory might be a bit strong, but I'm wondering because a lot of people do adventures that aren't like that, and you've done some other stuff like the kind of
Like the
Ironman
things,
things and the
yeah.
Yeah. So did it feel different, or was it much the same? You were just kind of out there enjoying the Sufferfest, but enjoying it along the way.
Yeah, it didn't feel different to me. Like, that wasn't my motivation. I think that one of the reasons it's a world first is just because like no one had the idea to do it. I mean, it was really hard. And but perhaps people just didn't kind of put those ideas together. For me, it was just something that once I just ignited the idea, and no, the like I said, because I was quite new to like social media and stuff at the time, so I didn't really have a lot of like, people were supporting me and stuff, but I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I was doing it for me. It was like, that was my opportunity to define myself, and to have this adventure and just experience it and live it. And so, yeah, the fact that no one else has done it is like, that's cool. And I love that. But I just think, it's just because it's just a bit different.
Now you've been on social media for quite some years and you've got a big following, and it's kind of part of your work, I guess, as an influential person in adventure and endurance sport. How's the journey been through social media, and what have you learned along the way?
It's been amazing. Like, so as soon as when I finished the Alpine Coast to Coast, I was living in Chamonix. I had no job and I'd spent all my money on like the Alpine Coast to Coast. So I was like, okay, I really need to make this work now. So I threw myself into creating a life for myself through Challenge Sophie. And as soon as I started building a following, I knew that I wanted to be a force for good, and I wanted to use that to build a community, to support people, to activate and empower people to go on their own life-changing journeys. And I just did that by sharing my story and by supporting people and being like really active within the community. And it's been phenomenal because I get to connect with people all the way around the world. I get to create opportunities for people to come and challenge themselves and experience the things that have changed my life. Like, for example, every year I organize a bike ride challenge from London to Paris in 24 hours. And like, everyone in there finds out about it mainly through my social media. And some of the people have come back like 3 or 4 years in a row to do it because of the people they meet and they love the experience. And without social media, I wouldn't have the opportunity to create those kind of events and to engage with people and offer them to people. And I just love it. I just think it's such a cool tool to be able to share something you're passionate about, to be able to like champion messages that you think are important and bring people together.
It's nice to hear the positive side of it as well, and to actually see how you've made some very concrete impact on people who follow you and for the better, because we hear a lot of the bad side about social media, but I really I think I said it before some time ago, that it's a bit like, it's a tool, isn't it? It's like a knife. It can be used to cut a birthday cake or inflict harm on somebody else, and you can use it as a way to inspire you and to become your best self. Or if you kind of don't use it responsibly, then it can get the better of you as well, and it can really have a detrimental effect on some people. But I think the messages that you spread are really, really positive. Like you've talked about, kind of make the most of your life, and the other one that's really powerful is kind of judging a body based on its functionality, not on its aesthetics. Can you talk a little bit about that and that message that you kind of broadcast?
Yeah, that's basically how I feel about our bodies, because I think that, and often body confidence can be talked about with women. It's so prevalent with women, but I know that like men suffer from it as well. This pressure from the media and this body shaming that happens, that is just, the other day, it blows my mind people go on social media and tell somebody else that they've put on weight during lockdown as if they're doing them a favor. Like, I've seen that because my friends have reposted it and said, like, somebody did that. It just blows my mind that you would do that, that you would think that that is a productive or positive thing to do with your time or to somebody else. It's insane. But anyway, so I think that for me, when you actually go and you challenge yourself, you realize how incredible your body is. And that takes away the focus from how it looks. You get to use your body and push yourself. And they are so incredible. And they really just want to do the best that they can for us. And they just want us to fuel them and, look after them. And that's the kind of picture that I want to cultivate, is actually, let's love our bodies and let's go and put them to good use and show ourselves what we can do with them. And that is amazing. So yeah, there's a statement on my website which I say, fitness for me is not about how you look or about aesthetics, but it's about what you can do with your body, and really importantly, how that makes you feel. Because if you go run a marathon, you're going to feel incredible. You're going to feel superhuman, because running a marathon is incredible and it is superhuman. And it doesn't matter how you look or what body shape you are or size. It matters that you ran a marathon, and it matters how you feel, and how you wake up every day and how you feel about yourself determines the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I think if you have those two lenses when you go on social media, that it's not about having to look a certain way, and that you should be inspired by the messages of others. I think that does a good job of avoiding it being quite so catastrophic as it is for some other people. It's not that you have to look a certain way like somebody who's really slim. It's more that you should be impressed by somebody who's trying really hard, following their dreams, and going after their goals. That's what should really impress you, as opposed to somebody who's 8% body fat. So you've worked with a lot of big brands, and kind of your role as an influencer. Have you noticed any barriers in adventure for women, or do you think that's not really the case, or are things heading in the direction? What's your experience been?
I think that a lot of it comes down to confidence, especially with women. There's a lot of barriers that we put in place. We think that we might not have the right kit, or we don't have the right knowledge. We don't know where to go. We don't have anyone to go with. We're scared about being on our own, and I think that often people can, we can create, say we want to do something and make it into this big thing. And actually we need to just take the first steps and make it almost, for example, if you want to go wild camping, don't necessarily go and plan and make it really big camping on Ben Nevis. Go and do it somewhere that's really close to home. And it's just about taking those steps to build your confidence. I know that cycling, for example, people are worried about cycling on roads, and the best way to break down those barriers is just to give it a go and to find people who will take you underneath their wing. And I have found a lot of people like that, because I have, when I've kind of like gotten into sports and taken on adventures, like I might not necessarily have had the right kit or the right knowledge or even the experience to do it. But what I was lacking in those areas, I was bringing in desire and drive and energy. And people seemed to like that. And they were like, okay, cool. She might not know how to change a puncture, but she's got this like crazy ass spirit where she just wants to go and cycle London to Paris in 24 hours. So let's do it. It'll be an adventure. It'll be fun. And, I think that there's always barriers. But for me, when I first quit my job and started blogging, one of the big things that I wanted to do was to break down those barriers and to make it seem fun and accessible, and that everybody can do it. And I want people to look at the things that I do and think, if she can do it, so can I. Whereas what I saw previously from a lot of like perhaps other people in the adventure space, other adventurers, was sort of keep making a bit of a distance, or there was a bit of a distance between here's what I'm doing. And I want people to be able to not just come to a talk that I do and think that, that like there's something different about me or put me on a pedestal. I want them to take action. That is my personal objective in life, is to help people create change and help them go on their own, in journeys with adventure, and to experience all that they can from it. So for me, I'm all about breaking down those barriers. I think that it's been, I personally don't, whether I haven't had that many, or I just don't really pay attention to them. I'm not sure. I think more that I just carry on with my thing. But I did have a situation a couple of years ago where I applied for a TV program called The World's Toughest Army, and it was on the BBC, and they wrote back to me within very quickly from me submitting my application. And they said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but in keeping with the Special Forces selection criteria, we're not accepting women on this TV program." And that to me seemed like something that I wanted to talk about openly, because I'm a big advocate for change. And I thought that, this is a TV program, it's not actually going to war. And why can't women have a chance to compete on an even playing field and to show how strong they can be, and if it is world's toughest army, then why can't women be involved as well? So I wrote about it on my blog, and the BBC changed their minds, and they accepted women onto the TV program, and a woman won the entire program. She beat every man in the country.
Awesome.
Claire, she's an amazing lady. There's loads of research out there saying that women actually need positive role models, and sort of this idea of you can't be what you can't see. And it's really important. The research shows it's really important for women to do that, especially younger girls. So yeah, that's why I'm a big advocate for it. I think if people can see that, then they can think, oh well, actually maybe I could do something like that.
So what are you doing with Trailblazers, and what's that initiative about?
Trailblazers is a youth empowerment program that I set up to build confidence and courage in teenage girls, but also goes back to what we've been speaking about. The theme of our podcast really is about these life skills that you and I know that you get through adventure and challenging yourself, that you don't necessarily pick up in schools. And I wanted to create a program and go and work with girls that really need it, to help bring them bring them to the surface, and so they don't feel so squished with all the pressures and the judgments, and they can actually be themselves and be the best version of themselves and go and live the lives they were destined to live. So I created a program where I delivered talks and workshops in schools, and I also run adventure camps. And I recently took a bunch of 10 girls sailing. We went sailing around the southwest coast for a week, and just, it's so incredible. I absolutely love these experiences of working with these girls and just really helping them go on that growth journey themselves.
Is it still going now, or what's the kind of state of things? Are you looking for funding?
Yeah, it's going. I'm looking for funding. I'm looking for people to help as well. And there's so much potential there. So it's just figuring out the best way forward with it. And yeah, it's been really amazing. So more of that coming up soon, definitely.
Sounds good. So if anybody likes the sound of getting involved with that, I guess Sophie would like an email from you.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good program. Something that I've seen is that you have an amazing van. Tell me about your awesome van. How I haven't seen the story behind it. I just saw a picture of it, and it's the sexiest van life van I think I've seen. It looks awesome.
Oh, I love my van so much. I've wanted a van ever since I was a child, and never went on any caravan camping holidays, but I was always like, that looks so fun. I don't know, I just thought the idea of having your home in your car just seemed like the funnest thing ever. And I'm all about making dreams come true. So last summer I just decided to get on my van project, and I built a Pinterest page with some inspirations and started thinking about what I was going to need in my van, and what was important to me and what wasn't. And I found a van, went off and bought it, an old builder's van from VW. And then I found this amazing company called Van Life Builds to do my conversion. And we just got to work and started planning it. And from sort of September through to January, they built this just absolutely beautiful custom van. And it's just so much fun. I was really sad towards the end of it. I was so excited to pick up my van, but I was also sad towards the end of the project, because I was like, I really enjoyed, working on this with you and choosing all these things and making these decisions and figuring out every tiny little detail. It's mountain themed inside. It's got like beautiful mountain splash bag. It's got solar panels on the roof. It's got a hammock that kind of comes out of the side of the van. And one of my favorite features is you can climb out through my bed into the through the skylight. Sorry, you can climb out from my bed through the skylight onto the roof and go up there and like watch the stars or have your morning coffee up there. Honestly, it's so amazing. I'm just so excited about it.
Have you had a chance to get away in it yet, or was it when was it kind of done just as lockdown was coming in, or were you still busy? Have you managed to get away?
No.
Oh no.
So, I mean, I had a few little very mini adventures. I took it to Whitstable one day for a day trip and made some bacon sarnies, and I took it up north to the Peak District and had a weekend there. And it was like, it's like end of January. It's pouring with rain the whole weekend. I got ill. It really wasn't the van life dream, but it's all good because my van's not going anywhere, and I'm really excited to be able to go and like properly use it this summer. And I can't surf, so I want to take it down to maybe Cornwall and spend a week down there and try and learn to surf, and go up to Scotland. And I'm really excited, and I think that it was such a great decision to get it.
That sounds great. You'll have the perfect adventure vehicle for exploring the UK. We'll have to go for a surf together one day. You can come along with the gang, and we'll get you aboard and get you up.
Fantastic.
Okay. Well, Sophie, thanks so much for your time. It was really awesome to chat. I'm so glad that we finally managed to get round to it. So thank you very much for coming on the show and taking the time.
It's been my absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and just hope that everybody else did as well.
So where's best for people to find out more about you?
You can find me on Instagram, all social media channels. I'm Challenge Sophie, and my website is challengesophie.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And cheers, guys. Look forward to seeing you next time. So that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Head over to Call to Adventure, that's TO, calltoadventure.uk for show notes and more about this episode. You'll also find lots of other free content there. Things like how-to guides and gear reviews, everything to get you out on your next adventure. We've also got loads of adventures for you to join us on in the UK and abroad. We've got things like climbing, hiking, mountaineering, surfing, wild swimming, ski touring, and we're adding new ones all the time, so do take a peek. Each booking helps us fund our green mission, and all international trips are carbon offset. Please do rate and review the show if you're enjoying it. It helps get more people engaged with the outdoors and on board with protecting wild places. Thanks for listening. See you next time.